Hey everyone, today I want to speak about a strong and versatile character, that of course being Rosaria. In this video I will go over her builds as a cryo sub DPS and as a physical main DPS and important things pertaining to this. Alright, with that out of the way, let us begin. I'll first quickly go over her normal attacks. Rosaria's normal attacks is a sequence of 5 high scaling attacks. In terms of an attack combo, I'd recommend to sprint cancel after her 4th hit, so you can repeat this combo without performing the long 5th hit. Next, let's go over her skill. Rosaria's skill is a lunge attack she performs to enemies near her. The skill's range is good. Rosaria can lunge to enemies about 2 dashes ahead of her. Rosaria can hit enemies farther than this, but when performing this skill, Rosaria will not hit the back of enemies, and you want to deal a back strike, as if you do, Rosaria will gain 12% crit rate for 5 seconds, thanks to her talent Regina Probationum. This skill is great as firstly, you no longer have to end your attack rotation and spend stamina and time running to an enemy. Now you can seamlessly and easily jump from one opponent to another. Next, as I've said, at the latter half of the skill, Rosaria will actually lunge behind an enemy. This is useful as you can use this to quickly dodge an enemy's upcoming attack or to get some safe hits on an enemy, as most enemies cannot attack you when you're behind them. But do note that for certain large enemies such as Ruin Guards, for some reason the lunging at the back will not occur. Moving on to Rosaria's burst, she will summon a cryo lance that will deal damage on its placement and deal tick damage every 2 seconds. Her burst will last for 8 seconds, but with her C2, its duration is increased by 4 seconds. Rosaria's burst is great as it not only deals strong damage, it applies cryo well, and increases the crit rate of the other 3 party members, thanks to her talent Shadow Samaritan. The increase of crit rate lasts for 10 seconds and is 15% of Rosaria's own crit rate, so you definitely want to have a good amount of crit rate on Rosaria. I'd recommend to have 55% crit rate on Rosaria, as by attacking the back of an enemy through her skill, she will gain 12% crit rate, giving her 67% crit rate in total. Upon casting her burst, that 67% will grant the party an additional 10% crit rate. As for which of these talents you want to prioritize, as a sub DPS, you'll want to prioritize her burst and her skill. You can level up her normal attacks if you'd like, but as a sub DPS, you'll never really be performing them. As for a main DPS, you'll want to prioritize her normal attacks, then her skill and burst. Though as a main DPS you'll be performing her normal attacks constantly, you will still be using her other 2 abilities, especially her skill to jump from one enemy to another, so you should still level up these abilities. I'd recommend to level them up to at least level 6. As for Rosaria's weapons, she has many sub DPS options. In terms of 5 stars, she can use the Staff of Homa for a great increase in crit damage, she can use the Jadewing Spear for an increase of crit rate for both herself and the party, and she can use both the Engulfing Lightning and Skyward Spine as a 5-star energy recharge weapon, the stronger of the 2 being the Engulfing Lightning. As for 4 stars, the best weapon in my opinion would be the Catch. It has everything a sub DPS would want: energy recharge, an increased burst crit rate, and crit damage. If you do not have the 5 stars I mentioned or are using the Skyward Spine, I would highly recommend to use this polearm instead, as it is very strong. Alternatives to the Catch would be the Favonius Lance or the Prototype Star Glitter. I recommend to use the Favonius Lance instead of the Prototype, as the extra particles given by the Favonius Lance is very useful for both Rosaria and the entire party. You could also use the Black Cliff Pole if you have enough energy recharge and are lacking crit damage. As for a main DPS, the best weapon hands down is the Crescent Pike. Despite being a 4-star and free, it's well known in the community that this polearm is insane, so you should absolutely use this weapon. If not possible, you can use the Staff of Homa or Jadewing Spear. As for a weaker but still usable option, you can use the Skyward Spine. Though it gives energy recharge, it has a nice attack speed boost that is useful for a main DPS. As for artifacts, as a sub DPS for early players, you can use 2-piece Berserkers and 2-piece Sojourner, or 2-piece Exile and 2-piece Braveheart. For late game players, you have a few options, but undoubtedly the best set would be the Emblem of Severed Fate. All their energy recharge Rosaria will have through weapons and through her substats will not only better her burst uptime, but also increase her burst damage due to its 4-piece bonus, so this is definitely the set you want to be running on sub DPS Rosaria. You could also use these sets. If you're going to use them, I'd recommend to use whichever set you have the best substats on, as these sets are close in terms of damage. In terms of energy recharge, I'd recommend to have around 180 to 200%. This may seem like a lot, but with energy recharge weapons and substats, it shouldn't be too difficult to reach. If you're using Rosaria with another cryo character aside from Eula, as she doesn't generate many particles, I'd recommend to run about 160 to 170% energy recharge. On to main DPS artifacts. For early game players, you can use 4-piece Martial Artist or 2-piece Martial Artist and 2-piece Braveheart. For late game players, 4-piece Pale Flame outputs the most damage, however only when the 4-piece bonus is activated. Though this can be reliably triggered with Rosaria's skill, if you want to have a comfy option to where you can at all times deal the most damage and not have to worry about activating buffs, I'd recommend to use either 2-piece Pale Flame and 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry, or 2-piece Pale Flame and 2-piece Gladiator. I'd more so lean on 2-piece Pale Flame and Gladiator, though you should test these two artifact combinations as everyone's case is different, but with Rosaria as a main DPS, she will already have a huge amount of physical damage bonus through her weapon, goblet, and artifacts, so at this point, having more physical damage would be overkill and thus not benefit her as much. In a scenario like this, the Gladiator's added 18% attack would output more damage than another 25% physical damage bonus. As for her Constellations, though she is great at C0, she becomes even greater with Constellations. For sub DPS Rosaria, you definitely want her C2. If possible, I'd also recommend to get her C4, as it is a nice quality of life upgrade, but her C2 should be the priority, as the 4 seconds does make a big difference. As Rosaria will output more damage, you can perform more reactions, and you have an extra 4 seconds in regenerating her burst. For main DPS Rosaria, I recommend to aim for her C1 and C6, the priority being C6, as the physical shred is very useful and will give your Rosaria's normal attacks a good damage increase. For team comps, as a sub DPS you can put her in any team that requires passive cryo damage, or a character that can apply cryo to enemies, for example a Mel team, led by say Diluc, or a freeze team with a Hydra character like Xingqiu. She is also an amazing support to Eula. Rosaria applies cryo very well for superconduct to occur, and with Rosaria's additional crit rate, passive cryo damage, physical resistance shred, and additional cryo particles, Rosaria complements Eula very well. Lastly, you can also place her in a team that lacks crit rate. For main DPS comps, as I've mentioned, her kit applies cryo well for superconduct to occur, so she can be played in a superconduct team. You can also put her in a taser team, where she will be the one leading the taser reaction. And that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed and gained from this Rosaria guide. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. We are on the road to 200 subscribers, so thank you to all those that have been subscribing. It really does mean a lot to me, so truthfully, thank you. If any of you do have any questions, by all means ask me in the comments. Please do not hesitate. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed. Take care, and thank you once again.